Donald Trump under fire this morning for asking U.S. District Judge Gonzales to recuse himself from the Trump University trial, stating a conflict of interest. One person who believes he may have a point joins us now. He is Alberto Gonzales, a former U.S. Attorney General and Dean at Belmont University College of Law. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So I'm absolutely willing to believe that this or any other judge might have biases, may have done or said things that would make it improper for him to preside over a case. But Trump is making a different argument. He's arguing, and he's done it so publicly, that because this judge's parents were born in Mexico, were Mexican, he is unfit to try this case. That seems an illegitimate point and kind of a nutty thing for a presidential candidate to say.
Well, and I did say in the piece that I wrote yesterday that that alone would not be enough, in my judgment, to disqualify the judge. You know, I wrote this piece not to support Donald Trump's statements about the judge, but to support Donald Trump's right, like every other American,
yes,
to have an impartial judge hear this case. That was the purpose for this piece that I wrote yesterday.
Well, that's of course an entirely legitimate point, and all of us have the right to question people's motives. But we understand people's motives again by the things that they say or they do. Why would Trump even bring up the country of origin of this man's parents? Aren't what your parents do or where they were born, isn't that by definition irrelevant?
Exactly, and that is a point that I made in the piece that I wrote. To try to disqualify someone based solely on that, I think, would be inappropriate. But it's perfectly legitimate to look at other reasons. You are a litigant. You want a fair trial. You want to win that case, and that's true for anyone. It should not matter. It does not matter who the litigant is, whether or not they're a terrorist, whether or not they're a child molester, a rapist, a murderer, or a racist. Everyone in this country is entitled to a fair trial before an impartial judge. And so to question whether or not Donald Trump can receive that in this case, I think is perfectly legitimate. I would have done it differently, and I said so in my piece.
Yes.
Because I think to publicly question a judge like this, I think, particularly someone who's running for president, could be president a year from now, I think that could do damage to the judiciary.
Yeah, and if he keeps talking like this, he's not going to be president, in my view. So is there evidence, do you think, that this judge, Curiel, might be unsuited to preside over this trial?
I don't know. Again, it's perfectly legitimate to ask the question. And I think the judge, as every judge should do before every case, to consider all the facts, to consider the publicity about the case, what's being said publicly about the case, and make a decision. Again, it's not just about being impartial. It's about the appearance of impartiality and propriety. That's the standard that the judge must satisfy.
So what do you know about this La Raza legal group? I think it's distinct from La Raza most of us are familiar with. But the La Raza legal group with which the judge appears to be somehow affiliated, what do you know about them?
I know very little about the group. I don't know whether or not there is an affiliation with the national group, which has been very critical of Donald Trump's immigration policies. There may be a relationship, there may not be a relationship. That is a question that the judge needs to answer, because if there is some kind of relationship, is there, again, an appearance of impropriety? Listen, I understand there are very raw emotions about this. I'm angry whenever someone attacks a Hispanic judge, because I've worked for groups that have worked very hard to get good Hispanics on the judiciary. But this is not about the judge. This is about whether or not someone can receive a fair trial before an impartial judge.
Right. I guess why it's so frustrating for people who don't want to see Hillary Clinton become president is that, you know, the Democrats argue that if you don't share their views on immigration, that you're by definition a bigot. And of course, that's an utterly unfair thing to say. You can believe in secure borders and, you know, have no regard to people's color or origin, of course. But this makes it very hard to defend the Donald Trump campaign when he says, this guy's parents were born in Mexico, he's a bad person, if you see what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Again, as I wrote, I would have certainly taken a different approach. And I think that's particularly true for someone who is running for president of the United States, because, again, whenever you say something, about a judge's nationality, I think it demeans the office, and I think it hurts the judiciary as a whole.
Yeah. Alberto Gonzales, former Attorney General of the United States, great to see you this morning. Thanks a lot for coming on.
It's a pleasure.